That's where the waste moment happens.
Mm-hmm.
And waste management, you crazy?
Yeah.
That's dirty. What are you, poor? Every time I watch Gary cleaning a river, I'm just like, it makes me angry actually. Like, when does waste happen is when people mix everything together.
Mm-hmm.
70% of the waste going to the landfill is organic. You see that a lot of products are being pushed into the market, building infrastructure to overcome the sachet. Sachet should be banned.
I was in the car the other day going from Kuta to Ubud, and the whole way, all the villages were just burning garbage, and I was just so horrified.
Those persistent organic pollutants are accumulate in our bodies, and our bodies have a hard time getting rid of them, to the point where we have hundreds and hundreds of women that are working being environmental stewards.
This episode talks about what happens when good ideas meet the real world and why they don't always survive. Welcome to For People, for Earth, for Us, the podcast, where we talk about the human story, the world around us, and the choices that connect them. Today I'm here with Nino, who's going to tell me all about this. Thank you, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to ask, who are you today, and what do you actually spend your time doing?
Mainly a dad, husband, homeowner, home buddy. Really, really enjoy spending time with my son and being with my family, and being able to be present with my son and just be with him as he's growing has been incredible. And I think one of the most or the biggest gifts, and being able to take that time has been really, really been a blessing.
What a blessing. The real reason you're here actually is because no matter where we look in Bali, like I see there's so much garbage. The waste problem on social media, I see it all the time coming up on my newsfeed. And you've been really working on the ground to tackle this waste problem for so many years. So can you tell us what does a waste management system look like on the ground, away from social media, away from everything, like the real deal? What does it look like?
It's probably important to focus on the materials before it becomes waste, to look at it also from a production side, as you guys are also a producer of material, and they put products out into the market.
Yep.
So I started in 2008, 2009 doing research at Temesi Recycling, and I was in the landfill, at the facility, going to villages, and I was writing my thesis at the time.
What was your thesis about?
Waste management in Indonesia and the
Okay.
greater role of the community.
Okay.
That's like 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
When you start to dive into the theory and start to talk with people on a government level or working on different, within different institutions, you see that a lot of products are being pushed into the market. And so you have people need oil, cooking oil, they need different kinds of foods. And how is that then delivered to the people? And who gets the contract to deliver that? Right. So that's kind of where the waste problem starts.
Yeah, and these are the sachets, right? Like
The
small.
sachets, the bottles, who are the producers of those products, right? And how and why are they making products in the way that they are? The products arrive at a village. The warung owner doesn't have to actually pay upfront. They get them on commission, right? And they have a loan agreement. The companies have loan agreements, and the product then is distributed to all the family members. Everyone consumes it, and then there's waste.
Yeah.
That's where the waste moment happens. And I think it's one of the big knobs that are there, right? That we could turn. It's one of the big, handles or levers, right? That could change. And this is where extended producer responsibility comes in. This is where we want producers of these products to take more responsibility, to be more accountable for the materials that they're pushing into the communities. And they're still not.
Okay.
So big brands that we know, there's also other Indonesian family-owned ones. They've been doing this for over 50 years. Cigarettes is also huge, right? And we do have the legal framework. We also have the institutions like Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, to make changes to these companies, to ask them to operate differently to make different products less, right? Or even ban a big amount of products because they're damaging to health and environment.
So
But
you're saying that it starts with the consumer, right? The waste problem starts with the consumer
with the
buying with
producers,
the producer.
right? And the producers have too much freedom and are pushing a lot of product into the market. So you start to see that, and then you can start to see, okay, this is producing waste. How do we solve the waste problem? First, you go to the producers. That's really where we need to be taking the conversation. And I keep saying that to Gary and other people as well. I say, you need to go to the producers. You need to go to the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance. Bye-bye plastic bags was also a big topic. Okay, so then we have a lot of products. They're pushed into the market. People consume them. And then you start to talk about waste management. When does waste happen is when people mix everything together,
Okay.
right?
So when you mix everything together, that's when waste happens.
That's when
Okay,
it's
let's
technically
talk about that.
becoming waste.
Okay,
If you
why?
keep the organics individualized out of the plastics, it's organics. It can be composted. It's not necessarily waste. It can turn into something useful, be reintegrated, so it still stays a material.
So what about the plastic though? The things that cannot be recycled.
That plastics are going to be waste because they're not going to be recycled, right? There are some like PET, polyethylene. There is HDPE, there's LDPE. Those are plastics that have recycling value, but they have to be clean, they have to be pure. There has to be demand for them.
Is there a facility like currently that actually can process that here in Bali or in Indonesia?
Yes, we have facilities in Java for plastics.
Yeah.
We have the ADUPI, which is the Association of Recyclers, Plastic Recyclers. They are able to mainly recycle PET, and that's always been the case. And the bottles are always in high demand. Same as cans that you drink. They're aluminum. They're in high demand. And then there's probably like 8 or 9 other categories of products which have a good recycling value. But the rest becomes waste and goes in the landfill.
I don't know if you know this, but we decided a few years ago to do like refills in cans because of the recycling
Value of the
value,
can.
right? Yeah, because I was so tired of seeing these sachet refills, and like they say eco-friendly, but they're in sachets. And I
Yeah.
just thought like whenever I do river cleanups or whenever I do any cleanups, I always see so many sachets, and we're just so over it. So we came up with the idea, let's do it in cans, and it's not conventional, it's something different, but we realized that it is recyclable. We don't
Yeah.
see many cans in the landfill. We don't see
Yeah.
many cans in the rivers, because it has a value.
It just reminded me, there's a really interesting woman in Jakarta called Tiza Mafira. And Tiza has been working on extended producer responsibility with multinationals, and she's doing refill stations that can go through the villages. So carts where people can actually come, and the carts have different schedules, and you can come and refill your different things, and building infrastructure to overcome the sachet. Sachet should be banned, right? It's one of those things. It's extremely convenient, but highly polluting and also expensive.
So like what happens to those sachets? Like, because you've been on the ground and you've been in the field and you've been in the landfill, like what happens to them realistically in the real world?
Nothing. They're all still there, sitting in the landfill.
Okay, so every time you buy a sachet, it's just going to be there and it's going to live longer than you.
For sure. And I mean, they also will degrade, not biodegrade. They will degrade, get into smaller and smaller pieces, and then they go into the rivers, and then the river barriers can't catch them, and they go in the ocean.
So just basically you're saying these sachets turn into microplastics.
Yes.
And they just
And then,
live in our world forever and ever and ever.
and we're like all eating the fish, and then unsure of the effect and impact it's going to have on us. I think I'm not like a chemist. There is in Indonesia an expert on toxins, and she does a lot of reporting, writing. Her name is Yuyun Ismawati. She has a Focus Foundation, and they do a lot on all of the materials that go into making plastic, and it's not regulated.
Oh,
So
okay.
plastic isn't a pure product in itself chemically.
Yeah.
There's 30, 40, 50, sometimes 60 different additives being put in as softeners, things to form, shape, smell. And I think it's all of these additives that are going in that are quite dangerous.
Mhm.
They then call them POPs, persistent organic pollutants,
Mhm.
when they burn and when they are released into the environment. And then those persistent organic pollutants are accumulate in our bodies, and our bodies have a hard time getting rid of them.
So when we're like when they're burning plastic, that plastic, the air is actually going into our bodies and it's whatever pollutants staying there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if you've noticed, but I've I was in the car the other day going from Kuta to Ubud, and the whole way, I just all the villages were just burning garbage, and I was just so horrified. And even in my own home, I'm sleeping with an air purifier because I can smell the burning garbage. And now that I know how bad it is, it's even more scary. And like, we shouldn't be burning rubbish, right? So I want to talk about your work with MPH because you do have incinerator, you did like mini incinerators, you did like mini
No,
waste.
we didn't do
No, you
incinerators.
didn't do incinerators.
I think MPH, what we really focused on was getting people on the ground
Okay.
and implementing change in the villages, and to the point where we have hundreds and hundreds of women that are working exactly on these things of being environmental stewards, and some even going with a megaphone, asking people to separate, talking to the public, talking about the dangers of burning, circulating pamphlets, creating WhatsApp groups in the villages. So the facilities that we built with MPH became environmental hubs. They became a place for environmentalists to meet. And they had a composting station, they had a recycling program, they had a community space to sit, and they became a place where people that care about the environment are.
Okay.
And they were then empowered by government decree, by village decree, to enforce environmental rules in the village. That was the purpose of MPH, to enforce, to implement, to build infrastructure for environmentalists. And
But it's on the it's on the community level, it's on the village level, right?
yes, but with the governor's decree and with the individual Kabupaten mayor's decree, so it was extremely important that we did it that way.
Why?
Well, first that we built the first facilities to and made them Balinese owned, so we're not just another bule building something telling the Balinese what to do, but the Balinese themselves actually took the action of making it theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into its own facility. It turned into a TPS 3R, it turned into a TPST, it turned into the different SOPs and standards, and all the jargon and language was developed by the Balinese themselves. Before 2015, that didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And no one wanted to deal with it. No one wanted to be involved. It's like waste management, you crazy?
Yeah.
That's dirty. What are you, poor? I was always considered crazy for wanting to deal with waste. It's
But I mean,
like,
it's such a huge problem, right? We
what?
always talk about waste, but we never talk about how is it implemented in the field. And now with like all this waste problem and like garbage everywhere, how do you like how does Merah Putih Hijau fit into this crisis right now? Because I think we're in a crisis with garbage everywhere. We're in a waste crisis.
So what's really good with Maraputi is that there's a large group of knowledgeable young people there.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them have the ability and have families that are in politics in Bali to influence the politics. I think what my next idea is to build on this young generation and to put forward the idea of an individual institution, a which is separate from government, which is owned by and managed by a group of environmentalists,
Mm-hmm.
and which then fights for the authority to be able to override government decisions. Because government decisions change on a 4-year basis.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the biggest problems in waste management, where we need consistency.
Mm-hmm.
right? You see, you built this factory. Why? Why did you succeed? Because you were consistent, persistent, right? And you continue to build on layer by layer and layer after layer, and it took time,
Yeah.
right?
A lot of time.
So imagine if in 4 years someone comes and tells you and Skylar and your whole management team, you're not doing this way anymore. You're going to follow my rules because I'm the government. That just doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
right? And the waste management sector operates within that landscape where the government keeps coming in and changing the rules, leadership changes, and the people that actually know what's best aren't allowed to do what's best. That needs to change.
Okay.
Super important. And I think the timing is right now for that next step to take place. It needs to, again, come from the leaders in waste management, and they need to build this new organization, and they need to override the government. And before that doesn't happen, we're going to still be in a chaotic shit show.
Tell me about Tamesi, because you were working there and you said like 90% of the waste is compost, but somehow that didn't work out. What's the story?
90% recycled.
Yeah, 90%. So what happened?
Temesi faced the problem of fertilizers, not being able to sell fertilizer, not being able to distribute fertilizer. We were producing about 15 to 20 tons a day.
Wow.
And that's quite a lot.
That'd be so helpful now, because we have fertilizer shortage.
Yeah, and the theory always was at the time, fertilizer shortages will come. Fertilizer is made from gas and oil. Fertilizer is damaging the soil, and there is a lot of science that backs all of this up. And the idea of the project was to create an example in 2008, 2010 for the Indonesian government and leaders to take and copy and to change the policy on fertilizers.
What is the policy? What is the current policy?
Gas arrives, is then converted into NPK, which is a chemical fertilizer.
But it's subsidized, right? I think that's the biggest problem, right?
And then there's a subsidy. There's a subsidy on the gas, and then there's a subsidy on the fertilizer itself. So two big state-owned companies get that income and revenue, and then it's distributed through farmers associations into the rice fields. And the rice farmers pay between 1,000, 2,000 rupiah per kilo, and they get quotas and an allocation. So that is still the case in 2025. Now 26, they're starting finally again, good movement, good people, knowledgeable, need to change the subsidy, need to redesign the subsidy. The Macy recycling survived up to 2022, but was completely running on carbon credits.
Okay, wow.
So no fertilizer sales, no additional income from recycling that was given to the village of Temesi entirely. So we only had the carbon credit. And I was in charge of reporting the carbon credit, getting the carbon credit, to bringing it from Switzerland to Bali. It's a bunch of accounting and reporting and compliance and all that fun stuff. And we got hit by a storm in December, and December 2022, big storm, roof collapsed, and it was just not enough money there in the end. So the whole operation had to just close. So it was a force majeure at the end. On paper, an environmental disaster collapsed the roof, and then we didn't have the funds to pay. But in reality, fertilizer subsidy was always the big killer. And we did, me and David Cooper sent letters and would do tours into Jakarta and also in Bali government, looking for actors that want to change the fertilizer subsidy. I found this stuff really interesting. I thought it was awesome working on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This is where implementation comes in. And I think also together with Maitri and Eco Mantra, everything we've done has been really pioneering.
Yeah, I agree.
And doing things at the forefront and, fighting against the odds.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It makes I have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you've been in the sustainability world for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, so we talk about ideas and sustainability and how they work, but how do good ideas die in the real world? Like when we talk about sustainability, when we talk about theory, it's like so easy. Like this theoretically could work. But from your experience, what are some really good ideas that you saw on paper, but when you came to implement it, it just didn't work in the real world? Maybe give us like one example.
I think more people need to be educated about the power of changing economic levers like taxes, subsidies, different financial instruments that can be implemented from Jakarta, from the central government, and how much that impacts our day to day. There's so many great products like mycelium or also recycled product, which can't compete on the market because if oil and gas continues to get subsidized so heavily by government money, it's in the tens of billions, I think over 50 billion US dollars in Indonesia going into different industries across the board from government money and spending. And that skews the price. So when you want to do a bamboo like Arif, or you want to do a mycelium cover like other great people or, grow things from mushroom, you're competing against plastics and resin that's being subsidized. It's almost impossible to make it into the marketplace. So the good innovation is drowned out by poor financial design.
Yeah, because for me, it's wild that you can buy like this one-time use product or like this bottle that's like plastic. It's cheaper than if you were to buy like an aluminum product. But yeah, it's just wild to me that something that's one-time use is just so cheap. It's so cheap. For us even we
So
can't,
cheap.
yeah, for us even we find it so hard to compete because we're choosing the better quality. We're choosing something that's biodegradable, So something that's biodegradable and look at our ingredient list.
But it's not what the market is doing, right? And you're like a unicorn. You're like unique and also just passionate about making that change. But it's almost like all the odds are against you and don't want you to do that
Yeah.
when it should be the other way, right?
Yeah.
And that's where things need to change on a policy level. And there needs to be more incentives for people doing these innovative things.
Yeah, and support, I think,
Support, and there needs to be more on the ground development that helps to stabilize, different alternative systems. But it's very dependent. In Indonesia, we're all very, very dependent on the central government and on their decisions, and it is the way things are.
So you've made a lot of this, like you've worked in Eco Mantra and you've made a lot of pioneering decisions on like how a company, a hotel, an institution can reduce like their carbon footprint, their waste. From your experience, is there any like one factor that determines if a project is going to work or not when you're working in this kind of systems?
The main factor is the commitment.
Okay.
Is the desire, the intention from whoever is owning the project and them making a conscious decision.
Because I feel like
that's really where it starts.
Yeah, because I feel like, I go on sales calls sometimes to like convince, these institutions to buy our products. But at the end of the day, we are more expensive, but we're biodegradable. Like we can account for our waste. Like Waterone was one of our really good customers. Like we literally take back the jerry cans and we refill them, and our soap is completely biodegradable. But companies are unwilling when they see the price tag to make that commitment. They just want to advertise, we're green, we're eco-friendly. But the truth is, when it comes down to, yes, this is the cost, they're like, oh, we don't like it that much.
Yeah.
Is that something you also encounter?
Yes. I think with Eco Mantra, it was extremely hard to convince developers of the benefits and finding the right ones. And I spent an enormous amount of time researching and also finding, but also just meeting and conversing and talking with leaders on all of the different benefits. And once you have that decision, it really makes all the difference. And I think we see then 40%, 50% reduction in energy, electricity, up to, 100% groundwater recharge, like putting wells in place and the right infrastructure to put water back in the ground. We see composting on site, we see soil restoration, and it just keeps going and going and going. Like once someone's on that pathway, and starts to understand all the different solutions that are in place, it's, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like, but there has to be a continuous desire. And I think what we also, have to be realistic about is cash flow.
Yeah.
Like, who's doing well in business? How much opportunity do they have to take a risk and to do something that's unknown to them?
When we talk about cash flow, for me and from my experience, and maybe you can correct me, when you talk about sustainable solutions, usually the upfront cost is going to be more, but in the long term, it's actually going to cost you less. Is that your reality as well?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's important to integrate sustainable ideas, environmental solutions into all aspects of a business so that you can really, really get all of the benefits from that decision. It's not just the product itself, but it really turns into storytelling, and it turns into a competitive advantage because your organization starts to change and you actually start to shift the way that your entire team thinks and believes. They start to believe in you and your business and what you're doing in a different way because of that, your meaningful contributions that you actually mean from the heart.
Yeah. There's always that cost though, right?
But you need to, convince leaders to do that.
Yeah.
And every single one of them that's worked with us at Eco Mantra or has had just benefits, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
it's been so good for them.
I agree. I mean, even for me, myself, when we talk about, using these ingredients, choosing this packaging, we always think about what's the actual cost to the environment. And it's always a very hard decision to make because at the end of the day, it does come, is it financially viable, right? And, we're doing our best, but we don't have a perfect system. But I think as long as we're consistent, and I think you probably think this, as long as we're consistent and we keep moving ourselves to that direction, we don't have to be perfect. We just have to be doing it.
I think there should be different grants for businesses that, are effectively reducing waste and that are doing refill stations and that, have a desire for their consumers to bring back their packaging and to refill. You should be getting support. You should
I
be
agree.
giving the platform, right? You should be given the opportunity from society to reduce your cost. You don't
Tax
need,
breaks, maybe that would be nice.
you don't need, right? The
Yeah.
competitive point you're in is because of the poor design in the marketplace.
Yeah. That needs to change.
It's essential.
Yeah.
Like, we're all on an uphill battle on a treadmill
Yeah, I
because
agree.
of poor policy design.
Yeah. And I think the world is moving so fast, and the waste problem is something so new, and I don't think like policy has caught up with the management of that. And yeah, it's a very complex problem, and I think the sad thing is when this plastic problem is going to outlast me in my life, our children are going to have to pay for it. It's going to be their problem. That's why we have to do as much as we can now.
And I mean, the waste management problem, as you said before, is catching up with everyone now. And you don't want to be the guy that's been like, I told you so.
Yeah.
15 years ago. And, like, how many thousands of conversations I've had of wanting to build composting sites or more infrastructure.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, I just use Eco Bali. Eco Bali has maybe 10 ara of land. 10 ara of land is going to solve Bali's waste management problem.
No.
Like, there's going to be 10 million people on this island soon. Like, how much space do you actually think we need for waste management? A lot more than 10 ara.
When we talk about the waste management problem in Bali specifically, what is one thing that people don't know about it?
How important separation is. I don't think people actually understand, like,
why is it so important? Tell us, educate us.
When you're at a waste management facility and there's a mountain of 60 tons arriving per hour, how do you think you're going to sort through it and separate it in time? Right? You guys deal with quantities here. 1 ton, a metric ton is 1,000 kilos. That's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
If it arrives separate and clean, it's a lot faster and easier and cost effective. And everything is much more seamless in managing the organics, the plastics, the papers, the metals, right? everything just can go where it belongs and it gets more organized. But this mixing of everything and throwing it together in Indonesia, as everyone's just lazy and says, oh, the truck driver is going to mix it anyway. I don't need to separate. That laziness continues is really the biggest problem in waste management.
So if anybody out there listening wants to make like a change in our waste system, the easiest thing you can do at home is separate your waste.
Manage your organics at home.
Okay.
Get a tip of modern. If you're living in an apartment building, find a way to compost maybe on your rooftop. You need to work with your neighbors and your, like community. If you're living in a cost, become the person that works with the other 14, 15 cost members and make a composting place and have everyone separate and have, in your kitchens and in your bathrooms, have dedicated places for organics. So the organics go there, the food goes there, the scraps go there, and then you bring it and you compost it. And you don't send it in a plastic bag. Don't throw your bunkos and food waste and everything mixed in the garbage.
Okay.
Like, separate.
So you've heard it. That's the easiest way that you can
It
help
is
make a
the
change.
number one thing that's everyone needs to do, because there are 6 to 10 million people on this island and everyone's doing the same thing.
So let's fast forward 10 years from now. If we don't start doing it, what is it going to look like? Because you've been doing it 15 years and you've seen, So let's fast forward to 10 years. What does that look like?
I really need more infrastructure, way more investment in infrastructure, a bigger waste management budget. It's still under 2% of the APB desa, of the anggaran from the government. There's the tourism tax from the airport that still isn't being allocated successfully, and it's not being effectively implemented. It should be going to waste management. People need to participate in an organization, association, in a way that they are actively shaping waste management and not just be passively standing by, because that's what's happening and that's what's been going on for 15 years. No one wants to get involved.
What do you think the island would actually look like if we don't do it? If we just keep going the way
it's just going to keep burning, man. I mean, it's going to be smoky, hazy. Like, the ppm is going to keep increasing, the parts per million in air, the PM 2.5,
How about the landfills? I'm afraid to ask. Are there going to be more? Is there going to be garbage everywhere? What does it look like?
I don't know. The last good program, I honestly, there's been a lot of good progress. Lots of village facilities being built, lots of activation from the Balinese. There's desire, commitment, and people do want to make a change and a difference. And the biggest thing right now is the Teba Modern, which is a concrete biodigester that's being built in Balinese compounds. And it's basically an active place for them at their homes that they can put organic waste in.
Okay.
And then it composts.
Okay.
And hundreds of thousands have been built. So
Wow.
That's a really good program. Households are getting composting bags. If you're living in a more dense urban environment, that's a little bit complicated. And the compost bag is too small. And then it's like, what do I do with it? And there is good progress.
I also
I
saw
don't
that.
want to talk it all bad,
Yeah.
Imagine it's
because I also saw in my village they have these things. I don't know. You make like a hole. What is it? And then they put all the waste. So the village will like install it in your home for free, but then you just have to use it. So
called a biopori.
Biopori, that's
Yeah.
right. Like in my village where I live, everybody's, and then there's even like this, everybody has one, and there's even this guy who can like come to your house and do it for you, So you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Bioporis, composting rings, table modern. I think the maggot farms have been fantastic. There is urban biologists. There's different like local waste solution providers that have popped up in the last 10 years and are really taking leadership. So I think it's quite nice to see that there's a lot more diversity in the space and people are actively participating.
I wanted to ask you, because we talk about greenwashing a lot, and you're like, for me, I feel like you're one of the sustainable pioneers, because you are one of my sustainable pioneers. What does fake sustainability look like for you?
Fake sustainability is making public announcements or also announcements within the organization and that you're going to enact change, create change, want to make change, and then don't put the resources there or don't put the SOPs in place, don't put a new vision and mission statement in place that actually guides the entire organization into a new direction. I think we see it across the big multinationals and large corporations that are providing all the single use stuff.
Yeah.
How many sizes do you think the bottles are going to come? You know, I mean, like the bottles are going to be like, they're getting smaller.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a shot soon. It'll be like 2,000 rupiah, please.
Yeah. I remember I went to like this sustainability conference and they were giving away like plastic bottles for drinking. And I was like, well, that doesn't feel like that to me. And it was because whenever we go to like events, you know, when our friends create events, they were so conscious, like they give us a glass and like, you know, wrapped in banana leaf. So like that's what sustainability looks like. It's like back in the old day, you know, when we were growing up, we didn't have so
I mean,
much.
Bali in itself, I think, is a sustainability pioneer. I think we're an island of pioneers in so many facets and ways. And people that have grown up here, that have lived here for the last 40 years, have created innovation across the world, I think, and
Yeah.
inspired innovation
Yeah.
across the world. I think but on a like grander scale in Indonesia, for the companies that are operating on a national scale, business is too easy, too good, business as usual continues. It's just, and they're just getting away with it.
Yeah.
And so it is greenwashing on all levels.
Yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
all of the multinational companies, anyone pushing products into the K markets, into the mini markets, into the warungs, they're the biggest greenwashers. And the biggest need for change is at that level. Mini markets, K markets, warungs, brands that are bringing products to hundreds of millions of people. They're the ones that really, really need to enact way more changes than they are. And, you know, every time I watch Gary cleaning a river, I'm just like, it makes me angry actually, like, because they're so much more responsible and they, since 10 years, have been saying that they are going to take more responsibility, but they haven't changed. And every water bottle, every cup, every sachet that's being pushed into the villages is their responsibility. And that's it, period.
Yeah.
It's no one else's. It's not the person consuming and making the waste. It is the producer. They're at the lever. They're designing the system.
Yeah.
They have the options.
Wow, that's a big reality check.
And that's really what needs to happen. If we don't get them to make those changes, our waste management systems are going to continue to fail. It's not going to solve it. It has to come from the producers. So you wanted to talk about greenwashing. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Let's let's wheel it down a little bit. For people out there who want to actually make a difference, right? They actually want to do something that to help, but maybe they're getting it wrong. What are some things you see that people are consistently thinking that they're making a shift or they're doing something to contribute to like this waste problem, but it's actually they're getting it wrong? Is any one thing?
I mean, if you're passionate about the topic and you feel like you want to do something, the biggest and most powerful thing you can do in Indonesia or as foreigners, as businesses,
Anywhere. Yeah.
is register what we call a KSM, Kelompok Swadaya Masyarakat, which is a working group on your village level, and start a little thing with your neighbors. It could be business owners that are here and other ones, and you have, just so you have an organization that actually speaks to within the neighborhood. It's like a community working group, like a neighborhood program.
Yeah.
And it brings together a few people within a square kilometer or a few square kilometers, and it says, well, what other options do we have to compost here? Is there an area of land that we could use? Can we relieve the waste management system and just put organics, manage organics here? That's already a big deal. 70% of the waste going to the landfill is organics. That's water. It doesn't need to leave the village. It doesn't need to be going in trucks. It's very heavy, consumes a lot of diesel fuel. The trucks then bring it to a landfill. Then it gets thrown in the landfill. Then it produces methane, which is 80 times stronger than CO2, creating a very, very short-term greenhouse gas. And so keep the organics in your village. Work with your community. That's a big one. That's a huge one we can do. And then from that, I think if you start to do that, then you can also be like, hey, burning has to stop, guys.
Yeah.
Like getting trust in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still trying, and yeah, there's so many, like, excuse me, there's just so many very stubborn people. And they just don't, they just love burning. Love that fire.
Yeah, they love that fire. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some personal questions now. What motivated you to do this work? Because this is not something like this is not easy. Whatever you're doing is not easy.
I worked in the surfing industry in 2000 before. I just did an internship, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in Indonesia. And at the time, we had Bali Clean and Green.
Yes, I remember that.
And that was like Steve Palmer, Little Tree, and also Jane and other people like were involved. There was Gus, Yaya Son Gus, and Richard Flax and Nathan and Laura, those guys and friends of mine. Just involved in environmental work, and there was a really strong Facebook group at the time.
So that motivated you, just the community.
Yeah, I think.
And
I grew up in Germany, outside of Bali, and Bali, for one, we grew up in collectivism.
Yeah.
With
community
and the feeling of community, and the Balinese having such a strong sense of community, and our parents being drawn to that. And then in Germany, it's quite socialist, and there's also, just so I think in general, my values are very much oriented towards wanting to have a positive impact on community as a whole, and much more than I'm individually trying to enrich myself.
Yeah.
And I get that whole thing. I understand, working and creating and through merit, through hard work, through the grind and that individual aspect. But a big part of me is also just really loves to think about community. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what motivates me. Yeah. And it's just my values. Okay. And principles that I believe in.
And has this work cost you anything personally in your personal life?
I mean, the businesses I started with Maitri, like our first one would have been solar power plants on a megawatt scale, and then being part of the power purchase agreement, which is then we sell electricity to villages. Second one was on an energy efficiency scale. If we were able to do the businesses the way that we modeled them at the time, designed them at the time, because the market would have allowed us to, we would have been very wealthy people and made a really big impact. But the market didn't or isn't ready, not accepting of a lot of these ideas and methods, and pushed back at a level where it was always very uphill. Yeah. And we then had to pivot into luxury, in hospitality, into building and participating in the building and development, because the market wasn't ready for the actual things we wanted to do. Okay. And the personal toll of that, I guess, is you do have the feeling that I wish could have maybe done things, or there could have been more change than we did. But at the same time, I think we did well. Yeah. And I think where we are is fine, and I'm okay with that. And for anyone that's in their 20s, go for it and make the mistakes and, follow your dreams.
Is that like a sentence or advice you would give to somebody who's in their 20s, gonna change the world?
Go for it. It's just, and dream big and build a strong foundation and community. That's the first thing that you need to do. Really, everything else comes from that. And I think a lot of change makers are floating around the world, flying around the world, and they're lonely, and they feel alone in their space. So a big merit and thing that Bali has given us is community, is stability, is roots, is to have a foundation to build on. And coming back to Bali to work here was the right decision because of that for me.
Okay.
And I hope more people achieve that
Okay.
that feeling of
Yeah.
like arriving.
Last question. Is there a question you want to ask our next podcast guest?
How or what would be your approach and solution to Bali's water crisis?
Okay. So thank you so much, Nino, for for being here, for driving all the way. I know it was a long drive for you. And thank you for sharing your insights. I learned a lot about the waste problem and how, it comes from the top. Because, I was always under the impression, you can always vote with your wallet, make the choices. But I think what I learned today is like, when you're talking about the village level, the smaller scale level, the choice is very limited. And we need to start with holding these companies accountable to the contribution of waste that they've created in our system.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really really important that that happens in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, and more people need to put pressure on different levers, and we need to bring more action into the policy level.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your insight. I have learned a lot today. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.